Welcome back to our program, Hollywood Structured. As some of you already know, our program is designed to help the young people who wish to enter the entertainment field, may it be nightclub work, music field, stage, theater, or television. It is also designed to help the parents and the educators of those young people to help them understand their wants, their needs, and the pitfalls and the traps they may fall into unless thoroughly acquainted with the inner workings of Hollywood. Today, as our special guest, we have someone who always wanted to be an actress. Oh, she thought of becoming a doctor at one time, right? Mm-hmm. But really acting was in the back of her mind. She is, however, today, a very well-known and very well-respected, along with her partner, Brad Buckner, I hope I'm saying it right, a well-known, respected producer, writer of comedy. And you probably have seen her credit on Mary Hartman, Scarecrow and Mrs. King, Sons and Daughters, and many more, which you will touch on. I won't right now. Her name is Eugenie Ross-Leming. And if sometimes I pronounce it with a French accent because it is a French name, Eugenie. Oui. Correct? Oui. Oui. Hello, Eugenie. But before Eugenie share with us her expertise and her experiences, I would like to take advantage of her presence here today to talk about an expression that you young people out there may have heard in school, being thrown around by your teachers, by your coaches at the university, an expression which says, in comedy, timing is everything. Well, it's an expression. However, what does it mean, really? It's a little more complicated than that. You have to deal with the audience. The audience, by the way, is part of the entertainment field. The actors are the givers, the audience is the receiver. It's like in a football game. If you have a brilliant quarterback that throws a beautiful pass and there's nobody to receive it, there's no game. Well, if you have a group of actors who are brilliant and there's no audience to receive it, you don't have a show. You will not have any kind of success. So we have to deal with the audience. What does the audience want from you, actors in comedy? Well, in order to know that, you first have to know what they want from you in drama. The audience wants to be entertained. By the way, entertain comes from a French word called entretenir, and since I'm part French, I love to tell you that. It means to enter and to hold the mind of the audience. So in drama, the audience mind wants to be possessed, wants to be owned, wants to feel what you are feeling. May it be anger, violent anger, may it be passion, may it be love, may it be laughter, may it be joy. They want to feel what you feel. And a dramatic actor will take long, pregnant poses filled with subtext. The pacing and the energy of drama is more low-keyed. And in drama, the anger, the confrontational scene will be much more directed to the other person. Now, in order to teach my students the difference between drama and comedy, what I do from time to time is I give them a scene, 3, 4, 5-page scene, and I said, I want you to study it, prepare it, learn it, and be ready to perform it next week in the same evening, both as a drama and as a comedy. How is it possible to transform a well-written, well-structured comedy scenes with loads of jokes into a drama? How is it possible to transform a fine written piece of drama into a comedy? Well, if in drama, low-key, anger at another person, and long pauses works, it's evident that it won't work in comedy. In comedy, you need high energy. In comedy, you need to pick up your cues quickly, verbally or physically. In comedy, you will not confront another person with loads of tension and anger. You will use volume instead. If you observe all those elements, then you too can do comedy. I would suggest, by the way, that if you watch comedy, you watch one show, and then if it plays again, watch it again. The first time you watched it for content, you wanted to know where the show was going, what the story was all about. If you watch it the second time, watch it for delivery. And you will be amazed at how much you can learn. Well, we might as well learn from our guest today. Eugenie, you're on. I'm sorry you're not feeling too well today.
I hope I don't choke in the middle of this, but...
If you do, we'll get you a glass of water.
Thanks.
Were you born in California?
Chicago, Illinois.
When you were in school, I mean, you say you always wanted to be an actress, but I mean, at the age of 4, 5, 6.
I don't know if I always wanted to be an actress. I don't know if I understood what that process meant. I wanted to be the center of attention. I wanted to be a performer, so if that meant being a brilliant heart surgeon, you know, or I don't think it meant being a quarterback, but I mean, I think I always knew that I wanted to entertain and get, I sort of like to absorb the energy of other people. And then as I got older, I realized acting was a way to do that.
I see. Were you very good, a good student in school?
Academically? Yeah.
Yes.
I was a firm believer in, I just did everything. You know, I think I did it all. To excel was the big thing with me. I'm very competitive, which I think gets you through a lot of rough spots. And I was a very good mimic. You know, I could really, I amused people in tough situations by, I think, kind of ridicule, and I'm very good at self-ridicule, which of course is, I found out very good in comedy.
When you were in school, did you study English? Did you study literature? Did you think that you would be versed in writing? Yes.
Well, I went to the University of Chicago, which is a very academically competitive school and very traditional. And it doesn't, pardon me, it doesn't really have a theater department. I mean, it's very medieval. It has disciplines. So I had a very traditional background, and I had literature and the humanities, and I studied the classics. So I approached all the theater that I knew from a very academic standpoint. Mm-hmm. But in extracurricular terms, was always performing, you know, at coffee shops or local theaters. While I was, you know, writing term papers on Socrates and Plato, I was, you know, acting in Euripides.
But in coffee shops?
Yeah, you know, in college, things get thrown together, and they say, oh, well, we can do the Oresteia, what the heck, you know, and you find yourself doing these incredible Grecian dramas, you know. I don't think my university training had anything to do with my acting gifts, if there were any, or my writing gifts.
You took acting while you were at the university?
What happened was that, you know, Second City, the cabaret improv theater, actually grew up. It started in Chicago. Mike Nichols, Elaine May, they all went to the University of Chicago. And I sort of grew up in that environment. My parents were friends with those people. And I always wanted to grow up and be in Second City. And I had an opportunity. The woman who started improvisational theater, Viola Spolin, was one of my first teachers. So when I was in high school, I was doing improv theater. By the time I went to college, I was also doing improv theater, and I got into Second City right then.
How long did you work with them?
I was there about 3 years.
Now, when you worked with them, did you make money? I mean, were you paid for that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was a real gig. I mean, you had to join Actors Equity, and you got to be a person.
Did you tour with that?
Second City had a touring company and had the main theater company. I was in the main theater company. Occasionally, we would go on the road. We went to Toronto. And that eventually turned into the next Second City, which had Gilda in it, Gilda Radner, and Jean Levy. But that company started out of the Chicago company, and then we opened up a cabaret, a second cabaret in Toronto. My company was Harold Ramis, John Belushi, me. David Rashi was in it for a while. A lot of really, Paul Flaherty. I was on the musical directors, Joe Flaherty, Billy Murray. We all grew up together.
Now, you're in Chicago. What brings you to Hollywood?
Well, I just felt I did everything I could do to be successful in Chicago. I mean, as wonderful as Chicago is, it's really cosmopolitan, and it's a great place for theater.
Did you work in television in Chicago?
I did everything. I did commercials. I wrote for the newspapers as a critic.
How did you get a job as a critic for the newspaper?
Well,
because of Second City?
I'm real opinionated, and I think it's really, I'm fairly literate. And so, I don't know, someone said, why don't you write I wrote a feature piece, or something happened, and, you know, in a smaller town like Chicago, if you're plugged into the action, you really are plugged into all the action. So people who knew me at Second City would ask me to do an interview show, or would ask me to do a commercial, or they'd ask me to do a guest spot on an award show, and they, you know, you suddenly find out you're multifaceted and you can do almost anything if you put your mind to it. So I was writing for the Chicago papers, I was doing feature criticism on the PBS news shows there. I mean, I did everything. I wrote for Playboy magazine, I did some of their interviews, their main interview pieces. I did comedy pieces for Playboy. I started writing more. You know, at Second City, you write your own material. It starts out as an improv situation where you're sort of directing and acting yourself, and then you hone it down and you guys rehearse, and within 3 months you have a whole new review. But it starts out just as raw dialogue between two people going for the jokes.
So you always made enough money
to
sustain yourself. Now you decide to come to Hollywood.
Right.
Just by yourself?
Yep.
Really? And what happened when you got in Hollywood? Did you have an agent in Hollywood?
Nope. I had a lot of friends. You know, some of us had left Second City and moved to New York, and some had moved to L.A., and I had to decide, well, where do I want to move? And I really didn't like L.A., and I really loved New York. But I felt if I went to New York, I would like it so much that I might get detoured into just enjoying myself. And I knew if I came here, all I'd care about was work, because I don't dig the sun. I'm not a sun bunny. I'm not a Palm Springs type of gal, you know. So I thought, I'm not going to like it here, so all I'll do is work. And that's exactly what happened. I just focused totally on work.
How did you get your first agent?
I met someone who, there was an improv group starting up here called, they were from New York, called War Babies. And they heard about me, and they said, well, we're going to try to start up a War Babies here in L.A. So come to a session. So we improv for 3 or 4 hours, and one of the people in the group, in fact, I remember it was an actor named Dana Elcar, who's on MacGyver. Yeah. And Dana said, you know, you're really funny and talented. I'm going to introduce you to an agent. I'm going to recommend you, which was incredibly generous. I mean, I've been out here like 3 weeks. And he did.
And so you got your first agent. Now, did you start working regularly? Was it difficult when you first started?
For me, it was pretty easy. I mean, not as an actress. I mean, I did like extra work a little bit, and then I auditioned for a part on a sitcom. And I walked in the room. It was just one of those nightmares, you know. I walked in, and I look like I look, which is sort of ethnic and dark, and, you know, I'm attractive, but I'm not, I don't think I'm anyone's idea of a California golden girl. And everyone in this room was tall, willowy, and blonde. I mean, I was sickened. It was like my nightmare. I thought, well, this is such a hideous error, you know. You know, I just couldn't believe that they sent me up for this part. So I had to go in. And I figured this ship has sailed, you know, this battle is lost. I'm clearly in the wrong game, but what can I lose? You know, I'd read the part. It was amusing. Yes. So I figured I've got to go for humor, because I'm not going to go for the type. Yes. And having come from Second City, where it's really dog-eat-dog, you go for those laughs. You know, the audience is out there, and you're going to die if you don't get laughs. Yes. I started improvising on the dialogue that they gave me, which was incredibly arrogant of me. I mean, the writer is sitting right there in the room. And I'm like making the jokes just a little, I think, more self-serving. Yes. And so they started really laughing, you know. These people were really applauding me, and made me feel great. My self-esteem went up, and, you know, you laugh at a comedian, she'll just really go for it. So I milked it some more. figuring I'm not going to get the part, but they're going to at least be amused with the moment. You know, at least let's celebrate this
They'll
moment.
remember you, right?
And I've got to make this work for me, just for me as a person, because it's not going to work on any other level. Anyway, they hired me. They just said, God, you're really funny, you know, and it was a great gig. And so I improvised a little bit more. You know, you rehearse for 4 days and then you shoot. And they're always rewriting anyway. And it was a real supportive cast and real supportive group of producer, writers, and director. And at the end of the shoot, they said to me, you know, Steve Gordon, may he rest in peace, was the executive producer, and Steve thinks you're really funny. So if you have any ideas for scripts, why don't you come in and pitch them? And they meant as a writer. I thought that was great, you know. I mean, I'd never thought about it, really. And so I said, okay, fine. Now, I'd met Brad Buckner, my partner, and I were friends, and we were working on projects together, because, you know, you can't count on acting, so we were trying to do anything, sell script ideas, sell TV ideas. I had an idea for the show I had just come off of, and he had an idea for another show, and they were almost the same idea. So we made a bargain that whoever sold the show would bring the other person on as a partner, because we had the same idea independently. And I sold the idea, so we both went in as partners on that show.
What is the advantage of having a partner as a writer?
Well, first of all, it's just another point of view, and if it's a real talented person, it doubles your talent. In my case, Brad Buckner just makes me laugh from morning till night, so it's like, it keeps me going. You know, when times are really bad and you just think, oh God, you know, we're never going to get another job.
A project off the ground.
You know, or what's wrong with us. You know, he makes me laugh, I make him laugh. He also has clarity of vision. If I might be too close to an issue, I might see a scene a certain way, and he thinks he's got a better overview. You know, it just gives you more objectivity, and it gives you more stamina. When you're in production on a series, you have twice as much energy. You know, I'm editing, I'm in the editing room, he can be doing a rewrite. I can be down on the stage with a director and an actor, working over a problem. He can be on the scoring stage. You know, we can just be, and you can do more than one project at once.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun.
Do you have an agent as a writing pair right now, and they get you the job, or do you get your jobs? Or is it both?
Well, I think they make the deal. I think right now that we've been doing it for so long, we have some reputation. If we're out of work, which knock on wood, we're not, but if we were, you know, someone, I mean, calls are probably made, but I think at a certain point, people come to your agent and ask, are you available? And then it's their job to sort through the offers and then make the deal. You know, lots of times you get offers, but they aren't compatible with what you need to stay alive.
Now, you got the offer, you've got yourself a partner, you've got yourself an agent. Who gives you your first big break?
In Hollywood?
Yes.
Well, I think the first really big job was Norman Lear. I mean, I know that. I mean, we were puppies. We had no business producing a television show, except that we had endless amounts of enthusiasm and creativity and enough smarts to want to learn from someone who knew more, and Norman knew it. And he brought us in on Mary Hartman. Al Burton, who worked with Norman, arranged the meeting, I believe. I mean, the chronology is a little confused now, but, and then we just met and clicked, and he was sort of our disciple. And we were disciples of him, I mean.
Let me ask you something, because I know that some of the young people sometimes say, oh, well, I was offered that, but I can't do it. Now, you were not really fully prepared to be producers, right?
No.
Okay, now, was it sort of a bluff? Was it sort of believing that you could do it? Was it also learning on the job, being willing to learn on the job? Would you advise the young people to take a chance?
I mean, there's on-the-job training, you know. I mean, if someone offers you a gig, you say, oh, yeah, sure, I can do that. You know, I have no idea. I mean, and frankly, you can do it. I mean, I knew I could compose a scene. I mean, I'd acted long enough, and I'd certainly improvised long enough, and I knew how to make a scene work. In television, writers, I mean, producers mostly are writers. You know, it's really a writer's medium. And so if you start with the scene and create the scene and the show, and Mary Hartman had its own dynamic, we were just custodians of the show, of the community, of the little town of Fernwood, and the actors who lived in it. And then there were things like editing, I mean, and certain technological things that, you know, that I needed guidance on, but there were people who could do that. You know, you just have to know that you have to have a point of view, and then you have to not be bashful about articulating that point of view, and you can't be such an arrogant jerk that you have to pretend you know more than you know. You know, if I didn't know how to cut a scene a certain way, but I knew how I wanted that scene to look, I knew what the end product should look like, someone could explain that to me, what the technology was, and then, you know, I'm not stupid, I could learn. So yeah, I don't think that's cheating. I mean, I think that's how you survive.
Does the job of producer comes automatically with the job of a writer?
No. But we were very lucky. We started out as, I think we started out as head writers. And then after a few, I don't know, 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, we were elevated to producers. I mean, in television, if you look at the credits, it really is the Stephen Bochco, Robert Singer, Brad Buckner, Eugenie Ross-Leming, Stephen Cannell. We're all writers who are now executive producers because we've created shows. But, you know, you can start out as a writer, and you're a staff writer, and then you become a story consultant, perhaps, or a story editor. I mean, there's just different levels of writing participation, which will culminate, I think, in producing.
What is, would you say, a typical day or a typical week as a writer-producer for you?
Well, on the current show I'm working on, Sons and Daughters, it's an hour show, which means we shoot, it's an 8-day shoot.
Is it on film? Is it 3 cameras?
It's on film.
On film.
And we shoot 3 days on location, 4 days on the lot, or 5 days on the lot if it's an 8-day show. And the days are different. I mean, I get up early, I go down to the stage, or I go to location to see how we started off. And then I may have a day where I've got to help the new director prep his next show. I have to deal with the show that's shooting, and I have to deal with the cutting and post-production on the show that just finished. So you're balancing 3 shows at once, plus all the rewrites, all the writing. It's a very hands-on type of gig. I mean, I'm a very obsessive personality, so it suits me.
How many hours would you say you work a day?
I don't know. I probably get there, 14.
14 hours?
Yeah, and weekends.
And you work on weekends
Yeah.
also?
Now, we're just launching a series, which means we're more fastidious about our participation. But, you know, a sitcom is a much better, a more civilized schedule. I mean, you go home. The writers don't get to go home so much, but, I mean, the actors get to go home at the end of, at 5 o'clock, they go home. And when I worked on a sitcom, I'd probably stay till 8, maybe 8 or 9, doing all those rewrites. And that last night before you tape, you know, you're rewriting all the way through the night. It's kind of, you know, hell. But then you have, you know, it's a different, then you go home and you have a weekend.
Now, on Sons and Daughters, it is a comedy, am I right?
It's a dramedy.
It's a dramedy.
I mean, it's interesting when you were talking about what makes comedy, what makes drama.
Yes.
I mean, I think the best comedy starts from a dramatic situation. I mean, I think the stakes have to be just as real, you know. I don't think you can do comedy and comment on it. The character can't know she's being funny.
That's right, that's right.
You know, we as an audience see the insanity of the situation, but the character has to believe it's totally earnest. You know, and I think probably issues are different. You know, in half-hour sitcoms, it really is kind of an abbreviated kind of writing. It's very difficult to do. You know, you do have to get like 3 jokes a page and be incredibly witty, and it is all precise writing. There's less air in a sitcom. You know, in an hour show, the acting rhythms are different, but you can still be pretty funny, you know, in a film show.
How many pages do you need for maybe the young people who are aspiring to be a writer? How many pages do you need to start with for a half-hour comedy, and how many pages do you end up with?
You know, I can't give you a really fair answer because in terms of my writing style, Brad and I write with a lot of alacrity. We just eat up words. I mean, it's just, you know, you think you're at 50 and you're enough, and and then you think, God, I need more. You know, and it's really odd. I'm sure a show like Moonlighting just absorbed words because that was just, you know, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, lickety split. And that's kind of the way we write too. Now, in our current show, we do have scenes that are much more fulsome. You know, where people do take time and ponder and reflect. And those are maybe the deeper scenes. But Then there are scenes that are just lickety-split all over again, and we keep having to rewrite. And we keep having, we think we have enough pages to shoot an 8-day schedule, and then we find we're short 4 minutes. And so we're back at the typewriter or the word processor or the granite tablets, shipping out those jokes,
You won't believe this, but it's almost time to wrap up. This is the time during our show in which we ask our guests to speak directly to either the young people or the parents or the educators, and you have 2 minutes to do that.
Gosh, I think this is an awesome responsibility, kids. I just think the most important thing is that you have to be relentless. You just have to have your eye on some goal. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't allow yourself to be detoured by opportunities. As Lily was saying earlier, if you start out to be an actress, but someone offers you a chance to be a choreographer and you also dance, it's not something to be missed, because all forms of the arts and entertainment really, I think, reinforce each other. I learned a lot as a writer. I never started out to be a writer, and I've learned so much more about the acting process through having to play all the characters in my mind. I mean, I'm a better writer because I started out as an actress, because I play the parts. I hear the voices, I know how I would react as an actress, and then I know how the character should react. So those detours really are not detours. They don't slow you down. In fact, in my case, I think they got me somewhere faster. I'm at a place now where I've always sort of been behind the scenes as a director, and now I'm just going to really do more directing. And these are really opportunities. They aren't problems. And I think if you have a real sense of purpose, you just can't be bashful. You can't be ashamed of your mistakes. You have to go in there and just, I guess, dare to fail, but just fail very grandly and very noticeably, because you'll rise again.
Am I hearing that the next step is directing?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
I've been nagging people for so long, and I think nagging and directing are both very close.
Okay. I would like to thank Eugenie for a half hour that went too fast. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now remember, young people out there, keep watching us because we keep watching out for you. Thank you. Till next time.